And ladies and gentlemen, we now come to this keynote titled Hybrid Multi-Cloud, the New Normal. And this particular session is brought to you by INFOCOM Netmagic. Our keynote speaker is Mr. Sharad Sanghi, Managing Director and CEO, INFOCOM Netmagic. Before I invite him onto the stage, a few lines of introduction for Mr. Sanghi. Mr. Sharad Sanghi is the Managing Director and CEO of Netmagic, an organization that he founded in July 1998 and now an entity communications company. Mr. Sharad is responsible for growing Netmagic to be India's leading managed hosting and cloud service provider with over 1,100 employees and 9 data centers delivering services to over 2,000 enterprise customers across the globe. His passion and commitment to deliver value to clients by building a customer-focused service organization is infectious across the company. Mr. Sharad is considered a pioneer in the Indian cloud computing space, and his vision has helped Netmagic become a leader in the public cloud services market in India. On the business side, Mr. Sharad led Netmagic through 3 successful VC funding rounds with Nexus Venture Partners, Fidelity, Cisco Systems, and Nokia Growth Partners. He led the 2012 acquisition, the company's majority stake by Entity Communication Japan, a first in the Indian data center market. Mr. Sharad is an industry veteran with over 20 years of extensive experience in developing internet backbone infrastructure and providing internet services. He is also part-time non-official director on the board of Bharat Electronics Limited, appointed by the Government of India. During a 6-year stint in the US, Mr. Sharad worked for Unified Network Management Architecture Group at AT&T Bell Labs, the backbone engineering group of NSFNet, and the router systems development group of Advantis, IBM Global Network. He has also helped Merrill Lynch and Bankers Trust design and deploy wide area networks. Mr. Sharad is an electrical engineer from IIT Bombay and holder of a master's degree from Columbia University, New York. Please put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, for Mr. Sharad Sanghi as he comes to speak on this very important keynote, Hybrid Multi-Cloud, the New Normal. A very warm welcome to you, sir.
Thank you Thank you so much for the warm welcome, and thank you to the INFOCOM team for having me here. I will be talking about hybrid multi-cloud, the new normal. First, before I start, I just wanted to show of hands. Are most people here in the audience using some form of cloud or the other? Yeah, okay, great. And how many of you are using multi-clouds, more than one cloud? Quite a bit, right? So I did a similar session at, in Goa at Gartner, and similar response. Many people who are deploying cloud computing solutions are actually deploying multiple clouds. And that's what this topic is all about today. And we'll go through the reason, what are some of the benefits of doing that, what are some of the pitfalls and challenges that one needs to look at, and what are some of the solutions that exist that one can leverage to deploy multiple clouds. So just a quick set of statistics. By 2020, 75%, according to Gartner, of organizations will have deployed a multi-cloud or a hybrid multi-cloud model. The multi-cloud management market, so obviously if you're deploying multiple clouds, there is a need to manage those clouds. And that management market itself is growing at around 31% year on year. And by 2020, 236 billion would be the estimated public cloud market alone. So these are just some numbers to put things in context. And we spoke to some of our own CIOs, and these are some of the, I'll just put give you some quotes that they gave us, just to give you things in perspective. And basically, people want to deploy multiple clouds for several different reasons. It could be because they want to leverage the best in innovation from different cloud providers. It could be because of a merger and acquisition that happens, and the one company was using a particular cloud provider and the new company is using a different cloud provider. It could be because people use hybrid IT because they may have some existing equipment either on-prem or in a data center, and they want to burst onto cloud. So different reasons that people give. But the amazing statistic, which I will show you in a minute, is that almost of the multi-cloud user, of the cloud users, more than 50% are using multi-cloud, right? About over 10% are using single cloud, and only around 30-odd% are not using. And of the cloud, people using cloud, that works out to almost more than 75% using multiple clouds. So what are some of the multi-cloud benefits? And this is what I want to spend some of the time. So obviously, one perceived benefit, although this works both ways, this also comes as one of the challenges, is when most of the cloud providers' pricing is kind of standard, right? They don't do much negotiation. But I think India being a very price-sensitive market, there is a fair amount of negotiation that you can do between cloud providers when you pit one against the other. So obviously, if you deploy more than one cloud and you have more than one partner, then they will try and give you the best possible price. The flip side also is that you won't get bulk discount. If you put bulk of your infrastructure with one cloud provider, then you obviously will get a larger volume discount. So that works both ways. But you also have the access to required functionality. So every cloud provider is coming out with new and new innovations, right? So AWS may have some innovations tomorrow. Azure may have something. Google may come out with something else. And some local partners will come out with something more customized to the local market. So everybody has some pluses and minuses. And the rate of change of technology in the cloud computing world is so fast that if you're just tied to one player, that you may miss out on some of the new innovation that others might have. And therefore, you want to be able to have access to a breadth of capabilities and innovation. Also, different cloud providers have their availability zones in different parts of the world. Even within India, there are different cities where these cloud providers are co-located. And so if you want to have an access to a broader range of geographies, even from a reliability, redundancy perspective, you can do that with using more than one cloud. Obviously, if you have more than one cloud, you don't have a vendor lock-in. So you're not, all the cloud providers that you're using know that you already have another relationship, and if they don't get their act together, you can switch to another provider. And obviously, there are different functions. It could be because of operating system. Somebody might prefer Azure because they're using a lot of Microsoft in their environment, and they get either because of cross-subsidy that Microsoft does with licensing that you do in your enterprise environment, or because of things moving seamlessly. If you're using, for example, Azure Stack on-prem, then it's pretty seamless to connect to Azure on the cloud. So many, many reasons why people do hybrid and people do hybrid multi-cloud. What are some of the challenges, right, that people have in using multiple clouds? So the biggest challenge is in terms of skills, right? You have each cloud is, you really have to get certified experts in each cloud. Everybody has their own nuances. They have their own way of, managing their infrastructure. They may even have different tools to manage their infrastructure. And therefore, it's not easy to manage, have skills to manage, getting engineers in virtualization and cloud computing is a non-trivial task, right? They are in huge demand by some of the cloud providers themselves. And so how do you maintain and manage multiple skills across multiple clouds? You have to look at data integrity and consistency to be maintained across multiple clouds. You may get lesser volume discounts if you have multiple clouds. That's the point that I already touched upon. You have to ensure from a security perspective that you're not only securing one cloud, but you're securing all the components across multiple clouds, right? There's a regulatory compliance that you might have to go through for each cloud provider. And when you're troubleshooting issues, right? Let's say there's a problem and you have to troubleshoot something, then that may take time, and that may not be easy to do, especially if you have multiple clouds deployed. From an integration perspective, right? When you're trying to integrate maybe common dashboards, there will be challenges because now you have to do it not through just for one cloud provider, but across multiple clouds. So obviously, it's non-trivial to do multiple clouds. Look at the infrastructure landscape that you have, right? You have various cloud providers, whether it's Azure, AWS, Netmagic, Google, DigitalOcean, Alibaba, and many more. There's IBM Software. There are a whole bunch of software as a service applications. There's ServiceNow, there's Oracle, there's Salesforce.com, there's so many others, right? And then you have different services that you want to consume, so different platform as a service as well. And how do you all make this work seamlessly, right? So that's a non-trivial thing again. So, one of the things that we've attempted to do, and this is not, it's not only done by us, there are others also doing it, but we are probably one of the first guys to do it in India, is to come out with what we call as a cloud management platform. We're probably going to brand it as Solution Insight, but basically it gives you a common visualization across multiple clouds that you consume, and it also does things like optimization of infrastructure. So if you are using multiple clouds and you are wasting, say, virtual instances on a particular cloud, we have tools that can make sure that the right amount of infrastructure is used. If, for example, you want to track spends across multiple clouds, you can do that. So there's governance as well as monitoring and management of multiple workloads. And at the same time, you can also provision across multi-clouds, right? Now, one caution, right? One caution, whether it's this solution or any other solution, each cloud provider is constantly innovating. So there is no one interface that will cover every single feature of all cloud providers. These common management platforms will make your life easier. So in terms of the challenges that I mentioned earlier, where you need a lot of skills, you need different tools, this will make 90% of your job much easier. But there will always be certain features that you want to leverage, for which you need to go to the native interface of the cloud provider, right? So I'm not trying to say that this is one solution that will just mysteriously fix everything, but this will just ease the way you can manage multiple clouds and just make multi-cloud management a lot more easier. And there are, so when you look at multi-cloud hybrid IT, right, the intent is that you have service providers today across the world who can co-locate your hardware, who can provide you dedicated servers on OpEx, who can provide you virtual private cloud, where, for example, compute may be dedicated and storage and network may be shared. They can provide you hosted private cloud. They can provide you on-premise private clouds, as well as various public clouds, right? So whether it's Google, Amazon, Azure. But the beauty is that how do you manage across all of this, right? How do you when you have different workloads spread across multiple platforms, how do you manage this? So there should be a single dashboard that can at least give you a visibility at the very least, if not the ability to provision and start and stop instances, but at least give you a single dashboard for governance, right? But of course, there are more and more providers like us who are looking at providing a lot more functionality to do this, and this will help people go through the multi-cloud journey. And basically, how do you decide which cloud is best for what application? So we recommend the solutioning approach, right? So basically, with the solution, the provider should have a consulting team that will go through your requirements, go through the different applications you want to deploy, figure out which is the best cloud for the. I'm not recommending by any stretch of imagination splitting one application across multiple clouds. I would also recommend have one or two large partners so that you can derive more attention and get better volume discounts. But at the same time, which is the best for what particular service that you're looking to deploy, right? So there needs to be a consultative approach. There needs to be a design done based on what is the requirement. Then there's a build and migration phase, and then a run and optimization phase. The optimization is very, very important. People often neglect that. So what happens is you end up deploying a cloud, and then you suddenly find that after some time, that there's a lot of wastage happening of instances. Somebody's forgotten that he's turned on so many virtual machines. So a tool that can constantly look at optimization, and also a tool that can actually compare the costs across multiple cloud providers so that if it doesn't matter, then you choose the one that is the most cost effective. And of course, you have to do compliance across all of this. So that's what we recommend for when you're selecting not only a cloud provider, but your entire multi-cloud hybrid architecture. So may I request that the video be played? I just have a quick video to show you what some of the things that we're doing. I think the sound is not there. This is actually a thing in production, which is already running across the world. And this is a screenshot that we've taken from that. Single platform that covers multiple clouds as well as bare metal and virtual private cloud. So it's basically covers the entire gamut of hybrid multi-cloud and monitoring and management through a single platform. Manages your firewalls and load balancers as well, and compute and storage across multiple platforms. Compliance check is also included in this. And this is the trusted fixer which reviews configurations for leakages. That's how you optimize your infrastructure. So all of that is included in this. So this is the level at which people are already providing services. I've just taken an example of our solution, but we are not the only ones doing this. There are others doing this across the world. That's the, and I'm sure as, technology evolves, there will be more sophisticated platforms that are available to make the management of multiple clouds easier. So if you look at what are the benefits of having a common view, right, when it comes to multi-cloud. So one is you get asset visibility across projects. So a single dashboard which gives you visibility of where your assets are. Provisioning and managing of workloads, again, through a single pane of glass, right? Again, as I said, I want one caveat here. This is not 100% functionality because at any given time, an Azure or AWS or any other cloud provider will be constantly coming out with new features. And any cross-cloud management will always be, a little bit behind before all the features are available on the common portal. But having said that, 90% of the work that people need to do to make management easy, which is starting and stopping your infrastructure, looking at the utilizations, looking at tracking your spends, all of that will be seamless with these kind of single view benefits. You look at various performance dashboards, right? You can optimize, as the trusted fixer that you just saw on the video can help you optimize infrastructure spends and right-size your workloads. So those are the various benefits of having a single view. So I'll just like to sum up on the benefits on how one should go about this. One is to maximize innovation, and I would still recommend, despite all the challenges that I mentioned about whether it was compliance, whether it was regulatory, whether it was security, management, I would still recommend looking at a long-term multi-cloud strategy, because the fact of the matter is that each cloud provider is innovating, and you want to leverage the innovations that you don't want to get stuck with a provider that cannot innovate beyond a certain point, because one doesn't know who will come out with the next major innovation, right? So at least the key, a couple of key players, I would certainly recommend looking at multiple clouds. We will definitely recommend a common governance framework at the very minimal for managing a multi-cloud framework. And obviously, one needs to balance the complexity and challenges of multi-cloud that I enumerated with also its benefits. So don't blindly adopt multi-cloud. Please understand is your organization geared to, or does it have the skills to manage multiple clouds? Do you have the right service provider who can do this for you? And only then adopt on this journey. But in the long run, definitely try, this. I would still recommend this as a long-term strategy. Obviously, it depends on the maturity of the organization before they can adopt the strategy. So that is, I would also like to say that, a lot of this that I spoke about, I didn't possibly reference each slide, but there's, I've taken a lot of this from interactions with Gartner, reading some of the reports, 451 research, and markets and markets. But coupled with the experience that we've actually seen over the past few years, so taking the relevant stuff, which I believe is relevant for India. When you look at some of these global reports, there are a lot of things that they talk about which may not be relevant to India. So I've just focused on what is relevant to India. And so that is what I had for this topic. I'd love to answer any questions that you may have. Yeah, please.
Would you like to tell us something about the cost involved in this very high technology environment compared to a little lower level of technology? Because it seems the more the technology is, you will save on labor cost, but you will spend on the technology spend. And hiring people who have people with knowledge of AI, deep learning, machine learning, that would be a very costly affair. They are very highly skilled people and a rare commodity. So would you like to tell us something about the cost-benefit analysis of this?
Yeah, sure. So,
you've told us
the
about the benefits.
Yeah, inherent benefit, right, of why would somebody, you're absolutely right. A lot of people think that cloud is cheap, right? If I go to cloud, I'll save money. Now, that is not necessarily true, right? Because if usage is unchecked, let's say you start using cloud without any discipline, and you start, you say, okay, there's a new development project, I'll spin out 50 virtual instances, and you don't then shut them down when the use is finished, right? You could suddenly find yourself that you've got a huge bill and you don't even know why you're using it. So that's why it is important to have visibility onto what assets you're using. That's not the only reason why the cost goes out. You're absolutely right. Skills are very expensive. They're not only expensive, they're difficult to retain. However, when in this day and age, when you want to be able to deploy, right, on demand, if you look at companies, you look at some of the cloud-native companies. You take a Flipkart, you take an Amazon, you take Uber, they're coming out with new and new features. Zomato, any of these guys, they come out with new and new features literally on a weekly basis, not on a daily basis, right? How do they, they have to order equipment like the olden days where they had to order something, it would take 2 weeks to come, then they turn it on, test it, etc. The business would not allow it. So the way you do this is, you have to manage, that is the reason why I said that if it is unchecked, not only becomes very costly to hire multiple skills. If you have to have skills in AWS, skills in Azure, skills in different technologies, becomes expensive. If you end up using infrastructure that you're not consuming properly or efficiently, becomes very expensive. That's why you need the management platform that I was talking about. I just gave an illustration of what we are doing, but there are similar management platforms that others are doing as well. which will allow you to not only track and control your spends, but also abstract that layer away and ease the management so you don't need that many people to do it, right? So there is a challenge. Yes, cost is an issue, but if it is addressed correctly, then you can actually control it. Again, it all depends on the business. Sometimes if the business demands that you justify, then the cost is justified. It all depends on what your business requirement is. When you talk about the kind of companies I mentioned, the cloud-native companies, if you look at even some of the banking companies, the rate at which they have to change features, like you take digital banks, they literally come out with new features every other week, if not every other day. They launch a new feature, there's a huge spurt in demand. They need elastic infrastructure that can cater to that demand. And so for those organizations, definitely this is justified. So it is a trade-off, yes. Any other questions? Yeah, please. Yeah. You have a question? Okay, I think we're done. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sharad Sanghi, for this interesting session. May I now request Mr. K.K. Mahapatra, Organizing Secretary and Head, INFOCOM, ABP Private Limited, to kindly come forward and present a memento to Mr. Sanghi. Thank you very much, sir.